Chapter 14-17. Li Nanheng walked back with the empty milk cup. After washing the cup clean, he walked out and saw Feng Ling standing in front of the window. Outside the window it was raining and thunder was rumbling, but inside the window, it was as warm as spring. To him, it had been too long since he last saw her. He missed her so much. 2 days and 2 nights was not his limit. If it weren't for the fact that she really couldn't take it anymore, he probably wouldn't have left the bed. But just by looking at her back, Li Nanheng felt that what he said when he touched her hair was not a lie. He really wanted to throw her back onto the bed. It was rare for her to recover from a serious illness, and it was rare for her to see. Li Nanheng walked over and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her ear. "What's wrong? You're busy taking care of me every day. Are you used to it? Now that you suddenly don't have to do so many things, are you not used to it?" "No, I just want to sleep now." Feng Ling's waist and legs were still sore, and the weather outside was not suitable for going out. Looking at the heavy rain outside, the raindrops kept hitting the window. It was as though they had once struggled step by step in the rain of bullets and finally reached a life where they could safely stay behind the window. This inexplicable peace of mind, as well as the sudden hug from the man behind her, gradually softened Feng Ling's heart. Feeling the softness of the woman in his arms, Li Nanheng kissed her ear and then her cheek. He turned her around bit by bit, from her eyebrows to the tip of her nose, to the corner of her lips and then to her chin. He kissed her neck and whispered, "I can see your eyes now. I can see all your expressions." His words were actually referring to something. This was because Feng Ling's current state of mind was completely different from before she went to Israel to look for him. At that time she often kept a straight face and was too lazy to talk to him. She kept a distance from him. Even if they had a one-night stand in the resort, she would still choose to look at him coldly the next day. She would get into the car and leave without looking back. But now she had worked so hard to find him and had stayed by his side for several months. It had been at least 4 months if not half a year. She was no longer the Feng Ling who was used to putting on a cold face in front of him. She was made of flesh and blood, and he was in her heart. Although Li Nanheng did not mention anything about the Gorkin farm in the past few months, he did feel guilty. At that time it was also a downpour. That rainy night she guarded outside for a long time. He refused to see her, but she did not leave. Her entire body was drenched before she was called in by Dr. Mona and Carrie. At that time, even though she had changed her clothes, when she carefully held his hand by his bed, her hand was still very cold. She did not catch a cold on the spot. She could only say that her good health was good. "I'll go take a shower first. I haven't after I woke." "I haven't. Since I woke," Feng said. Feng has. She really can't hold on any longer. This weather was suitable for doing what she loved to do at home. They couldn't go anywhere. Right now there was nothing urgent in New York that required them to go out. Right now she was like a fish on the chopping board. She was at his mercy and had no reason to resist. As soon as she finished speaking, she pushed him away and rushed back to the bedroom. In fact, when she was asleep, Li Nanheng was used to washing or wiping her body, so her body was very clean. However, it was more comfortable to wash herself. She had just taken off her clothes, walked into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Before she could adjust the temperature of the water to the most suitable level, the sound of the door opening came from the bedroom. Feng Ling paused and casually adjusted the water temperature. At this moment, the bathroom door was opened. Feng Ling was startled. She watched as the man walked into the bathroom and began to take off his clothes. She could clearly feel the desire in the man's eyes. Her heart immediately skipped a beat. She wanted to turn off the water and escape, but the tall man was standing at the bathroom door. She couldn't even stretch out a foot. The scene of being tormented by this man for 2 consecutive days until her throat was hoarse was still vivid in her mind. Feng Ling's throat instantly became a little dry and hoarse. "You should know your limits. If this continues, I'm afraid I'll die in less than a month." As soon as she finished speaking, Li Nanheng had already removed the restraints on his body and walked toward her. Feng Ling held the shower in her hand and subconsciously took a step back. She decisively refused. No. He didn't let her rest for 2 consecutive days. It wasn't easy for her to wake up. How could Feng Ling let Li Nanheng fulfill his wish so quickly? However, Li Nanheng was clearly in high spirits. After entering, he closed the door behind him and pressed toward Feng Ling, who was already in the corner of the bathroom. Feng Ling was about to spray him away with the showerhead when the man grabbed her wrist. Her back was instantly pressed against the cold tile wall. The coldness caused her body to shiver, and her grip on the showerhead tightened. Li Nanheng slowly took the shower from his hand and hung it back up. He then attentively adjusted the water's stability. In a moment the warm mist dyed the space in front of them. The surroundings were filled with white mist, perfectly enveloping the two of them. The atmosphere became even more hazy and even charming. Feeling that Li Nanheng was unreasonably sticking to her, Feng Ling made a final struggle. "Let me rest for a day first or wait until it's dark. I just want to take a shower and rest." You. She felt that her physical strength really couldn't compare to his. Right now this man was completely different from when he had just returned from Israel. He had completely recovered his beast nature. Li Nanheng kissed the corner of her lips. "Next time you can shower after I fall asleep. Otherwise I'll want to come in when I hear the sound of water." Chapter 14:18. Feng Ling felt the water droplets flowing down her collarbone. The man's kiss also moved down, and her entire body could not help but tremble. Li Nanheng's hand groped around her waist and abdomen, then he held her face again. Under the shower, he gently bit her lips and kissed her beautiful chin and snow-white neck, leaving a crimson mark on the way down. Feng Ling swallowed back the voice that had surged to her throat. She supported herself against the wall with one hand so that she could stand more steadily and prevent herself from suddenly falling down in a daze. Li Nanheng took this opportunity to lift her up and hold her around his waist. Feng Ling mumbled, "Not here." However, Li Nanheng leaned closer and continued to bite her lips, kissing her moist and tender lips until they turned even redder. He was ready to move and rubbed against her. Feng Ling was really speechless from his actions. "Slow down." Li Nanheng felt that it was not enough and turned her over. After an unknown period of time, Feng Ling's expression was filled with extreme pleasure and pain, and her eyes became unfocused. "Boss, let go of me, can't I?" In the last moment Feng Ling really felt that she was going to die here. After a long while she still hadn't returned to her senses. Li Nanheng held her in his arms, and in this posture he squeezed some shampoo and directly applied it to Feng Ling's head. Right now Feng Ling was completely powerless. She had long been pressed into the bathtub by the side. She leaned against it and weakly allowed him to wash her hair and then her body. As the man washed, he kissed her again. She raised her eyes to look at him in shock. She was really too tired. However, Li Nanheng took his time. As if very patiently washing her, he also washed himself, and then carried her out of the bathroom and placed her on the bed in the bedroom. At this time it was still pouring outside. Taking advantage of Feng Ling's distraction, Li Nanheng pulled away her towel and pressed it against Feng Ling again. Under Feng Ling's hateful gaze, Li Nanheng lowered his head and kissed her, saying gently and hoarsely, "I love you, Feng Ling." In the end, Feng Ling did not know when she lost consciousness. She only vaguely felt the bed beside her rise and fall. The man came over to help her wipe her body, then lifted her leg to wipe again and kissed her forehead. Feng Ling couldn't take it anymore. She closed her eyes and fell into darkness. The next day in the morning, Dr. Yorko, who rarely visited private homes, called to ask for the address. He then drove over personally for the routine examination that Li Nanheng had done every 3 days after he was discharged. The weather outside was not bad today. It wasn't easy for Feng Ling to sleep for a long time. After waking up, she opened the door for Dr. Yorko, packed up and left. "Where are you going?" Seeing that she was about to go out, Li Nanheng, who had just been helped by Dr. Yorko to sit upright on the sofa, shifted his gaze in her direction. "This is New York after all. The Feng family is here. I'm going home to visit the 2 elders. Is there a problem?" Feng Ling had been bullied by this man for the past 2 to 3 days. It was rare for an outsider to be around, so it wasn't good for her to put on a cold expression. However, for the time being, she was unwilling to pay attention to this beast. Her voice was indifferent. "And go ahead. Help me bring a good word." Li Nanheng gave her a look. Feng Ling pretended not to receive his gaze and turned to leave. Her original intention was to return to the Feng family. After all, Li Nanheng's eyes had recovered and he didn't need to stay in New York for too long. He would probably return to Los Angeles soon. Although the Feng family had an old residence in Los Angeles, she still had to ask the 2 elders if they wanted to stay in New York or return to Los Angeles with her. However, Feng Ling felt that they were old and not suitable for trouble, so she had to consider many aspects for them. She also needed to go home to discuss. On the way back to the Feng family, Feng Ling's phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the number on the screen and picked it up. "Grandma, Feng Ling, where are you now?" For some reason, Grandmother Feng's voice seemed to be very low on the other end of the phone. She spoke carefully. Feng Ling instantly sensed that something was wrong. She immediately slowed down and focused on the voice on the other end of the phone. "I'm on my way back to the Feng family." "What happened?" Grandmother Feng whispered nervously. The old helper and I brought little Momo out to play. We had just arrived near the amusement park when we felt a car following us. Now that we've entered the amusement park, I do feel two people following us after getting out of the car. Feng Ling quickly searched the car for the nearest amusement park to the Feng family. She drove into the fork, turned the car around and continued driving in another direction. She sped up and held her phone in her other hand. Her voice was calm and steady. Do you know who the other party is coming for? The old helper and I are two terrible old ladies. How could we be followed? They should be coming for the child. Hearing that Feng Ling's voice was calm, Grandmother Feng, who was originally a little afraid and nervous, suddenly quietened down. She said softly, I'm afraid that I don't have any abilities. If those people come to snatch the child, the two of us might not be able to protect him. I'll be right there. Feng Ling saw that the navigation showed that they were about 5 kilometers away from the amusement park. 10 minutes. Find a place with many people and wait for me. Don't look back. Don't let them notice anything. Just pretend that you don't know anything. All right, then be careful. Chapter 1428. The sky gradually darkened. Sure enough, Li Nanheng and Mo Jingshan directly called Qin sighting out. After a brief greeting, the three men went out to have fun and drink. Li Nanheng's residence in High City was in a very secluded community in the south of the city. It was located in the southernmost part of a townhouse. The environment was good, the air was good, and there were not many people coming and going. Usually, all kinds of luxury cars could be seen going in and out of the community. No one knew where these big shots came from, but those who could live here were indeed not ordinary. No wonder Li Nanheng always went to High City in the past few years. It turns out that he already has a place to live here. Jin Wan stood on the balcony and looked at the balcony that had just been cleaned. There was no dust or dirt, but because this place had been empty for too long, it was inevitable that there was a long-accumulated smell of dust. She could only open the floor-to-ceiling windows wide and breathe in the night air outside. He probably hasn't lived here for many years. Although it has just been cleaned, your nose is too sensitive now. If you are not used to it, let's go out and find a place to eat. Let's not eat here, Feng Ling said as she walked to the balcony. No, I'm not used to it. It's just that I've been angry with Mo Jingshan recently, so no matter how I look at him these days, I don't like him. Jin Wan sat down on the wooden rocking chair placed on the balcony and then touched her flat lower abdomen. I've only been pregnant for a few days this time, but Mo Jingshan threw Mo Shaoshan to the Mo family. I'm so angry. Feng Ling. Mo Shaoshan? Oh, I'm talking about a cat. We've raised this cat for more than a year. At first he was quite averse to it. Later he gradually helped me raise it, but suddenly I got pregnant. Without saying anything he sent the cat away. Luckily he only sent him to the Mo family. I can still visit him often. If he dared to send Mo Shaoshan somewhere else, I would definitely not live with him anymore. Anyway, she was too familiar with Feng Ling, so she didn't have to care too much about her image. She rocked here and there comfortably, feeling the cool night breeze. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Feng Ling, who was standing by the window on the balcony. She had not been in the base for so many years, but she was still standing quietly and upright. She was delicate and had long hair. From afar she looked like a beautiful white jade statue. When are you getting married? Jin Wan asked. After all, it was summer in High City. It was a very hot time. Feng Ling also felt that the night breeze was slightly cold, but it was very comfortable. Behind her was the warm yellow light from the window, and outside was the rows of green scenery of the park. Feng Ling glanced at her. The old people on both sides will come out to drink tea and walk birds every day. No matter how stupid it is, it's only one word different from your name. Besides, aren't you already used to it? You clearly like it. I've seen you secretly feed it dried fish every morning. On the balcony, the Mo couple quarreled fiercely. From Mo Xiaoshan's name to whether An and Ning Ning could sleep in the same bed with Jin Wan, to not allowing her to drink milk tea at the airport, they never stopped. Through the window, Feng Ling was pressed down on the sofa by the man who suddenly came back and carried her to the sofa without saying a word. She was not without feet. He suddenly came back and carried her away. What was going on? Qin's sighting was poached by Li Nanheng in the end. In the end, Qin's sighting was poached over by Li Nanheng. Seeing Feng Ling's expression, he sighed helplessly. Forget it, he had made a bad friend. He could only admit defeat. Thankfully, Qin's sighting was a professional doctor. Although he was not an obstetrician, he was proficient in both Chinese and Western medicine. He asked Li Nanheng to go to the pharmacy to buy a stethoscope. He occasionally listened to her heart and then checked her heart rate. Finally, he put away the stethoscope and said lightly, "Call the Li family's 4 elders." She just felt that his personality was cold, but he did not hate her or despise her. There were all kinds of people in this world. There was no need for everyone to learn to cater to others with a smile. Besides, as the crown prince of one of the 4 big families in High City, he really did not need to cater to anyone. The next class was physics. Teacher Zhang especially liked to give out papers. Every time he gave her a question, it would be especially difficult. After half a class, he would write down a paper and then hand out the results. Shi Nian's score was shockingly 91. She had just crammed for a few days of lessons that she had never learned in her 3rd year of high school. It was really not easy to pass. As she was very satisfied with her current results, she glanced to the side. She saw that there was a huge 120 on Qin sightings paper. The full score on this kind of test paper in class was 120. He was indeed a top student. He could easily finish an entire physics paper in 20 minutes and get full marks. Shi Nianj lowered her head to look at her 91 and quickly covered the number with her textbook. "Big boss, I can't compare to him. I'd better cover my embarrassment myself." The last class of the weekend. The week after the start of the 3rd year of high school was especially hard. After school, Shi Nianj had just walked out of the school when she saw the commercial car parked outside. She took off the headphones she had just put on to listen to music and walked over. She saw that the window had rolled down. The person who had come to pick her up was the Shi family's driver, Uncle Qin. "Miss, Sir and Madam have recently gone abroad to discuss business. There's no one at home. Are you going back to the Shi family to eat or to your grandfather's?" "Grandfather hasn't been in his own laboratory recently. Hasn't he been holding a seminar with many experts? I won't fill in the blanks at a time like this. I'll go home." Uncle Qin was about to get out of the car to open the door for her, but she had already opened the door and got into the car. After sitting down, she put on her headphones and said, "My parents are usually so busy. Usually only the auntie who cooks is at home. I don't think I should take such a long drive back on weekends. I can find a house near the school to stay." "How can that be? Miss, how old are you? You're already living outside alone? It's not safe." "What's not safe about it? You can ask Auntie Xiang to come here every weekend to cook for me. Actually, I can eat takeout, but my parents are worried and always ask you to do it. I'm already 17, not 7. If I live near the school, I can save a lot of trouble." Uncle Qin did not speak for a while, as though he was listening to the phone. 2 minutes later, he said, "Miss, I've been talking to Mr. Shi on the phone with my headphones on. Mr. Shi said that he can respect your wishes. You can take advantage of this weekend to find a neighborhood with better security facilities near the school. The family can book a house for you at any time for you to stay there first." "Okay." Shi Nianj smiled and did not say anything else. She directly amplified the music in her headphones. Since she was young, she had been considered a family pet. Everyone in the family loved her very much, but her grandmother and grandparents had left early. Only her grandfather doted on her the most, and her parents treated her well. However, because Shida Group's business was getting bigger and busier, the two of them were worried about leaving many of the company's decisions to outsiders. Therefore they were busy every day. The only thing they could give her was concern over the phone and unlimited money. Uncle Qin and Auntie Xiang usually took care of her the most. She had been used to this kind of life since she was young and understood how busy her parents were. When she was young, she followed her grandfather. When she grew up, she was busy with her studies and became more independent. The villa where the Shi family was located was still too far from the school. It would indeed be best if she could live near the school. Shi Nianj returned to the Shi family's home that night. After finishing a few papers and homework, she called her parents on the other side of the ocean for half an hour. In fact, they asked her if she was not used to being promoted to the 3rd year of high school. She said that everything was fine and only reported the good news. She suddenly jumped a grade, so it would definitely be more difficult for her studies. However, this would be overcome with time. There was nothing much to say. She only said that the teachers and classmates were very good. She also said that her desk mate was a top student and was very warm-hearted. He would guide her in her studies. Her parents were very happy to hear this. Only then did they hang up the phone and continue working.